This is something that's going to revolutionize our transportation industry. We realize that we need this to ease city traffic jams, okay? So urban air mobility is one of the most effective aviation systems for cargo transportation, air people transportation. It'll streamline and modernize the future for passenger and drone cargos.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 353. How is Texas advancing urban air mobility? For that question, we turn to Michael Hill, CEO and founder of Cumulus Technologies, a drone technology company based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Michael is one of the top subject matter experts in the areas of advanced air mobility and their integration on land, in the air, and at sea. He is a Part 107 pilot with over 1,980 hours of flight time, a consultant helping companies use drones and AI to create safer, more efficient working environments, and he has helped NASA and the FAA develop unmanned traffic management protocols for our national airspace. In 2021, the Texas Legislature passed Senate Bill 763, which established a new committee charged with identifying potential changes in state legislation needed to facilitate the development of urban air mobility operations and infrastructure in Texas. The committee must report its findings and recommendations to the Texas Transportation Commission and the legislature by September 1st, 2022. Michael is a member of this Texas Urban Air Mobility Advisory Committee and has been working with other committee members, industry leaders, and the Texas Legislature in implementing Senate Bill 763. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Michael talks about Senate Bill 763, the Urban Air Mobility Advisory Committee, the efforts by the state of Texas and the North Central Texas Council of Governments to promote urban air mobility, and how Texas is positioning itself to be a leader in advanced air mobility systems. But before we hear from Michael, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And by the way, if you have a great story on the use of drones that you'd like to share in a podcast, contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. So let's learn how the state of Texas is advancing urban air mobility with Michael Hill of Cumulus Technologies. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Michael to introduce himself.
I'm Michael Hill. I'm founder and CEO of Cumulus Technologies.
Michael, tell us about yourself and the work that you do in the drone industry.
I wear many hats in the industry, but there's a few of them that I'm most proud of. I'm an appointed member of the Texas Advanced Air Mobility Committee. I'm also the legislative chairman for the North Central Texas UAS Legislation and Policy Committee. I'm the director of unmanned operations for the Texas wing of the Civil Air Patrol, which is the largest search and rescue organization in the world. And then in addition, I'm the training officer for North Central Texas PSERT, NTX PSERT, which is Public Safety Unmanned Response Team. As for Cumulus, Cumulus Technologies is an award-winning advanced air mobility drone technology company, and we help municipalities, public safety entities, enterprises, and even school districts integrate and operate unmanned technology on the land, in the air, or at sea for educational, civil, or commercial needs.
How long have you been involved in the industry?
Yeah, it's interesting. I spent quite a number of years in the technology industry and working for Microsoft, and I retired 6 years ago and just kind of fell in the industry accidentally and just kind of grew into it. We're coming into our 7th year operating in the unmanned industry, and The last couple of years have been record-breaking years for us, and we're excited on the growth and the path of where we're headed this year.
In addition to the public and private sector, do you consult with the military sector as well?
Yeah, not so much the military sector, but I do a lot of consulting with municipalities and public safety and enterprise. And then, some schools, we dabbled in helping getting education going because we believe that is the pipeline to feed all these high-end careers that are growing out of this advanced air mobility technology.
So today I'd like to focus on urban air mobility and your expertise in that area. But first, how do you define urban air mobility?
So I think the easiest way to explain, you'll hear two acronyms, UAM and AAM. UAM is urban air mobility, and AAM is advanced air mobility. And I think the easiest way to break that down for folks that are not in the industry is that it's a safe and effective air transportation system where everything from small package delivery drones to passenger carrying air taxis will operate in these populated areas around the country to help relieve some of the traffic pressures that are down below on our roadways.
This is a huge undertaking, right? It takes a lot of coordination and partnership to solve the various challenges.
Everybody's trying to put this puzzle together with different pieces. In Texas alone, we have over 1,300 aerospace and aviation companies based here. So with all of them working on this new technology. So you're right, it's a big puzzle, lots of moving pieces and lots of players and stakeholders involved.
Speaking of Texas, what is the state doing to advance urban air mobility?
Well, we have quite a bit going on. So, Dallas-Fort Worth was chosen as an advanced air mobility testing ground for NASA and the FAA. We've been working on that for several years with the Uber Elevate project and other pieces. But most recently, our Texas legislators passed SB 763, and that was to create a committee of stakeholders and aviation and industry experts to assess our current laws and see if there's any potential changes that need to be done. And then, to also help facilitate urban air mobility operations. How do we use infrastructure? How do we support schooling? How do we tax it? Basically, every piece of the puzzle our legislators want to understand so they can start to, look at laws and other ways to help support this industry and grow it in Texas.
Who's on the committee?
There's 29 of us that were appointed to the committee, everyone from aviation companies, educational institutions, airport managers, public safety, and then, me as a drone technology consultant. So, and some of the key things we're looking at is infrastructure. How do we use the current infrastructure? How do we use these underutilized airports? Safety concerns, that's the big one on us. With this new technology, we want to make sure that those checks and balances, very similar to manned aviation, are in place for these unmanned or uncrewed vehicles, right? So then cybersecurity is another one. That's a big piece that we're looking at. Education. I just had a meeting with the NASA group a couple of weeks ago where they're trying to develop a SOC code. So they have an actual line item for UAS operators and then everything else that falls in underneath that, And then, one of the other things is trying to figure out how do you monetize this? Manned aircraft, they have a fuel tax, so they can get some funding in that from that. But we're not going to have that in this industry, So, we got to figure out how do we license these vehicles? How do we insure them? How do we utilize them? And then you have to look at infrastructure too. How do you use infrastructure? Is there existing infrastructure that can be used? So like Dallas-Fort Worth, we had Uber Elevate that launched here a few years ago. They moved headquarters here. We started working on a whole initiative with NASA and the FAA. We've got 60 locations chosen around Dallas-Fort Worth that we had worked to build out. How would we make this operation work in Dallas-Fort Worth? So we had a really great engine going, and then COVID hit. And then Uber really took a hit financially. They ended up selling off the Uber Elevate project to Joby Aviation out of California. Joby decided they did not want to finish testing in Dallas because of their facilities in California. But those of us here that have been working on this, we didn't let the project die. We just kept reaching out and getting people involved and educating people about drones and about package delivery and the infrastructure and the whole movement that's behind this advanced air mobility. Because keep in mind, advanced air mobility is everything from a small drone to very large passenger drones, right? We have Bell Helicopter that has developed the Nexus here. We've got Airbus that's developing on the technology. So we have all these players that are in and around and involved on this, And the expected launch for all this is 2025. So we never stopped working on it in Dallas-Fort Worth. We're all still working to push this technology forward. So there's a lot of moving pieces with it. Even though Uber has pulled out of it, we never stopped. It's moving forward. We're pretty excited about what's going on here.
Sounds like the state of Texas is setting the bar for advancing the technology. Why is that?
Well, so we started the North Central Texas Council of Governments, some 5 months ago. Most of us volunteer, like I volunteer as the legislative chairman, to get next to our legislators and educate them about drones and drone technology. But we've become internationally known now because the COG is a group of regionally based municipalities, city directors, aviation directors. So we become internationally known, and every month we have a task force meeting, and we've got over 400 members on there now. So Dallas-Fort Worth is chosen as a testing ground, but it's also got a huge spotlight on it because of all the things that we've been working on. So there are a few other states out there that are working on and trying to figure how to, get involved in urban air mobility because this technology is coming. It's here. There's some places in Europe, they're far advanced than us, but the technology is coming, and any legislator, any municipality, any business owner really needs to be educated on this new wave of technology because it's coming. So there are a few players out there, but nobody as strong as what Texas is doing.
What sort of assets are currently in place that can be leveraged?
Dallas-Fort Worth was chosen as this urban air mobility testing grounds. We had some players in there like Lone Star UAS, NASA, the FAA, and multiple other partners that were involved in it. So that is still in play. There are multiple projects that are going on. Like I said, we never dropped the ball on that. We just kept going because we know this technology is coming. There's been some talk of using some of this infrastructure money to help push the technology forward. So that is still going on. Dallas is still considered that testing ground for UAM and all the things that we've been working on for 4 or 5 years. We've got the world's largest vertiport here in Dallas-Fort Worth, based in downtown Dallas, that is underutilized, so that was going to be the basis of the main operations for Uber. They had a whole big plan with, air taxis and that. On top of that, we've got 8 autonomous freight companies in Texas that are levels 1 through 5. And there are several of them that are hauling freight autonomously with nobody in the trucks around Texas as it is. So Texas has become a really big testing ground for this autonomous new technology,
How will progress be measured?
There's been multiple benchmarks across it. Me as the chairman for the Legislative and Policy Committee, my personal goal is to get next to the legislators and educate them. There were 15 of us that sat on another committee that helped define how UAS are used by public safety in times of disasters here, right? So that kind of helped with getting our legislators to start looking at things. Unfortunately, our legislators meet every 2 years. This last session, it was more about our power grid and some COVID items. There were a few UAS bills that were passed, but, that's the biggest thing. And for me, I see it as a win that now our legislators have passed SB 763 that says, hey, go put a committee together of subject matter experts so we can learn about this advanced air mobility, so we can figure out how do we utilize it, how do we push this technology forward, and how do we support it. So there's so many different great things that are going on in Texas that gives us those benchmarks. But for me personally, having our legislators pass a bill and ask for a committee of subject matter experts to get out and research this, that's a big win because you have to have that backing from your legislators and leaders in your state to really make the technology and industry move forward.
Yeah, you're right on that. It's a lot easier when a legislative body establishes an objective that everyone can rally around.
Yeah, because there's so much to be learned. There's so much that you need to figure out. Like we said earlier, it's a huge piece of the puzzle that takes multiple stakeholders to help try to fit those pieces together. Texas is pro-business. We've got, 1,300 aviation companies based here. So we've got all the right pieces to really be the forefront leader in advanced air mobility. And we just needed our legislators and leaders to get behind us to really kind of give us that push out there for everybody to go, hey, look at what Texas is doing. Can we mimic that? Is there things that they've learned or tried that we can try? So we're pretty excited by that.
What are the key challenges in moving the urban air mobility programs forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get asked that a lot. And I actually have 4 on my list that I think are really key challenges to implementing urban air mobility into any airspace. The first one is advancing that eVTOL, that's electric vertical takeoff and landing. To advance that technology, we've got to keep pushing that. It's leading and it's growing away. And there's some really cool things that I've seen out there that are being tested and implemented and in and around this technology. So one, we need to keep investing energy and funding in advancing that technology. And then the next one would be the availability of landing sites, vertiports. How can we use our existing infrastructure? Do we need to create new infrastructure? Do we need to rezone infrastructure? All of those pieces that we have to figure out what we can use and what we can't use as we go forward, okay? And then, the biggest one for me is safety concerns, We're not quite there with the technology yet, and it's nothing against our aviation companies that have been doing really well in advancing this technology. But, a big piece of this is public support, okay? And that's the first thing. People don't want drones flying over their property, especially in Texas. We've got some very, very strict privacy laws here. And we've tried to get our legislators to redefine it, but it's a difficult fight here. And Texans are very proud of who they are and their properties, rightfully so. So that privacy and safety issue is a big concern with a lot of people. And then lastly, I would say, we need the advances in air traffic control. We need to train those ATC personnel. We need that technology that's going to be able to safely integrate manned and unmanned technology into our airspace. So all of these things are being worked on, but I really feel like we have to keep pushing these 4 challenges ahead before we really can get to accepting and implementing this into any of our airspace.
Is the advisory committee organized around those 4 topics?
Yeah, very similar topics, So we've got some really, really great thinkers on our committee. There's 29 members now, and everybody from aviation to educational, airport managers, public safety. But there's so much to do with this puzzle. Imagine taking a 10,000-piece puzzle box and turning it upside down, and all the pieces are laid out. You've got to now get a team together to go, okay, you handle education, you take care of safety, you do this and you do that. So we've broken up into teams where now we can sift through that section of the puzzle, make some sense of it, because we're on a very short timeline here. Our legislators have asked that the end of June, early July, that we give our recommendations to them. Okay, so we have a very quick, very fast timeline to gather these pieces together and put it in place. So you have to be organized. You have to have a bunch of professionals and open-minded thinkers that can do this. And we're very thankful that the committee chose the right appointees to move this forward.
How often does the committee meet?
We meet once a month, and there are open sessions where the public can sit in. We're going to be scheduling some more of those, and I'm glad to share the website with you so your listeners can look in and sit in on some of the public meetings that our committee's going, because we want to hear from the public. We want to hear their ideas. We want to collect as much information as much as we can to put this together as we move forward. So there are opportunities for the public to sit in and voice their concerns and ask those questions for the committee members to consider as we work on putting our recommendations together.
Have you been surprised by anything that's come up so far?
Yes. And that's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I've been talking about for years is cybersecurity and the issues with cybersecurity around advanced air mobility, whether it be small drones or these heavy lifting drones. So that was a big thing for me is, most people don't talk about it. Most people don't address it. I've had some conversations over the years with cybersecurity people, and they feel like in a small drone, you pull the SD card out and it's secured. No, there's so much data that's collected from that. So as we're digging around in this, I said to the committee, I said, I want to reach out about cybersecurity and find out. So as I started doing my research on who out there knows about cybersecurity in this realm, I was surprised to find that BlackBerry is the leader in this, okay? BlackBerry, the phone company, yeah, they are the leader in cybersecurity around this, not only advanced air mobility, but ground-based security as well, too. So that's the one that really surprised me out the gate. I had a conversation with the VP of technology with BlackBerry last week, and it really was just enlightening to find out. I mean, everybody knows who BlackBerry was, but to find out that silently they've rebranded themselves and kept moving forward in the technology industry where they're a powerhouse in the cybersecurity area. So that's the one that surprised me in all of this.
What have you enjoyed most about the process?
I tell people I'm like a surfer and I'm on the front wave of that wave of technology, so I get to be exposed and involved in some really high level projects, that put me in the room with some really big thinkers. I'll share this with you that the easiest way to become humble is to sit into one of these meetings, because you quickly learn that you're not the smartest guy in the room. There are some really, really smart minds involved in this technology, and it's exciting and to be a part of all of it. Just great times to be alive.
What happens after the committee makes its recommendations?
And that's a great question, too, because, so there was a group of us that sat on HB 2340 where the legislator said, tell us what needs to be used by public safety for using drones in times of disaster. So we spent a whole year and a half putting our recommendations together, right? And then we presented them the legislation, and then COVID hit, right? So nothing happened in our last session. So basically, those recommendations sat on somebody's desk. But what we started doing internally is, especially with the North Texas PSER team, and we've got public safety unmanned response teams in different areas of the state of Texas. We have a very robust public safety UAS program here, right? So what we did collectively is we all got together and we said, look, we all helped define these rules, laws, policies, and all this of how do we move forward. And we started implementing this into our programs, okay? So all that work that we didn't go dead. We didn't get the funding from legislators as of yet, but we've started to implement all of those things that we did through all of our public safety and first responder entities in the state of Texas to kind of get everybody up on one training platform, one industry focusing as one. So for this, I'm envisioning the same thing to happen with this too, is we're going to have all these subject matter experts put these recommendations together, and then individually, we'll work collectively to help support and move the industry forward. But also in our businesses, we're going to implement those things to kind of keep the heavy lifting and keep pushing this forward as we're educating our legislators as they figure out how do they want to implement money and laws and all of that. So that's one of the things I'm really proud about, being involved in these committees on the state level is people don't let all this hard work just flop over. They actually utilize it in their day-to-day operations to help keep supporting that industry so that way other people adapt to it and move forward with it.
How does urban air mobility relate to other state objectives?
I have to say, this technology is needed, okay? This is something that's going to revolutionize our transportation industry. We realize that we need this to ease city traffic jams, okay? So urban air mobility is one of the most effective aviation systems for cargo transportation, air people transportation. It'll streamline and modernize the future for passenger and drone cargoes in these aerial routes. But there's so many things that have to be looked at and addressed. So it can be a little overwhelming for some people, but I think there's a lot of great things going on here. And I, for one, am proud to be involved with all these great thinkers on the committee, because there are some really great things that are coming out, and Texas has really just embraced this. And, we look for funding and changes of the laws and being able to use underutilized airports and other things. So there's a lot of things that are going on. I would say that if anybody wants to know what they're doing in the state, scratch the surface of the news and see what we're doing.
What are the economic development implications of this evolving industry?
Dallas has been earmarked as the testing grounds also for investments, innovation, manufacturing. So, we've got Bell Helicopters based here. We got Lockheed's here. We've got some really big players here. But I'll share with you what the biggest problem I see is being able to funnel workforce for this, right? Being able to supply pilots and developers of the technology and mechanics, all of these things. There's so many things that new jobs are being created. And all of these companies, they're here, they've got the money, they're investing the time and energy, but we really need to focus on building that pipeline of education to get people to move into these higher paying careers. I hear all the time people go, oh, drones are going to replace humans. I don't believe that. I believe that this technology is just pushing us up a level in our skill sets to learn more, to do more, to help push this technology going forward. So there's some big players here, and we've got some really, really great things going on, but we're really need to focus on that educational piece, starting in middle school, getting kids excited about drones. I have 2 high schools in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that I have drone programs in, and we start in the middle school of getting kids to understand how do drones work? How do you operate in the National Airspace? All of those things around small drones, and lead them down an aviation pathway to hopefully fire this passion to be, a pilot or developer of the new technology or maintenance in the aviation industry. So education is where it's at.
And the programs have to evolve as well. I mean, a few years ago, it seemed the focus was on learning to fly and what you needed to do to start a drone-based business. Now the growth opportunities seem to be in becoming part of the larger uncrewed systems industry.
And that's interesting you say that, because there are a lot of players, and no knock against them, but there are a lot of players in there that feel like we want to get you to get your Part 107 and be a drone pilot. That's really a dying career, with the advancements of autonomy. You spend more time coding, programming that drone to go do whatever mission you need to. So, I have a lot of conversations with people around this, like especially schools. Hey, we need to start a drone program because we want our kids to get a 107 and become a drone pilot. No, that's a great starting piece. Well, of course, we want to use that piece in aviation to help them grow, but we don't want to stop there. We want to crawl, walk, and run. And that's the crawl part of it, right? We want to show them the bigger picture in the aviation, because autonomy is changing everything in and around, whether it be small drones or advanced air mobility, right? So it's not so much the drone pilot or drone operator. There's some people trying to change the term of that, but it's about advancing that skill set to, not only do you operate that UAV, but you're the site manager, you're the programmer, your maintenance, whatever may come with it. You know what I mean?
Have there been any comparison of the opportunities in the uncrewed systems industry with those that occurred with the space program?
Yeah, actually, there's been quite a movement on it. Like I shared with you earlier, I sat on a call with NASA and some of our North Central Texas people that are really deeply involved in, and there were some entities from the Department of Labor on there. The problem is there's no SOC code for that job title, okay, of whatever it be, drone operator, drone pilot, whatever it is. It falls under like electronic technician and some other things. So they're working on a very high level to give it its own occupation code. So that's how important it is to even our educators in the state of Texas about, hey, we need to make sure that This is an actual job title that, we can build curriculum around and we can help push and flourish this. So there is a big push in the education side as well of just trying to get that accomplished.
It's funny that sometimes the biggest funding hurdles come down to a simple code on a form.
Well, and it also helps the advancement of that too. When you know the switch is there and you can flip that switch on and it's something tangible, then the monies will flow. The Department of Labor puts so much money into educational programs, but they won't do it unless there's a line item code for that technology. We could sit here all day. I mean, I own a drone service providing business for 6 years now, and I can talk to you all day long about, how me or any one of my 6 pilots fly missions, right? But at the end of the day, as the careers are advancing, they need that occupational code so they can divert funding to that. They can, work with schools on grants and all of those things. So that's another piece of this puzzle that everybody's trying to figure out.
Is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
One thing I always tell everybody this, because most people don't understand what's advanced air mobility. How are these drones going to work? I don't want to be spied on, all of these things, So, and a lot of people just aren't involved enough. They don't have the opportunities to be involved in this industry. So I tell folks all the time, if you've ever watched the cartoon, The Jetsons, I'm here to tell you that we're living in the Jetson age of technology, okay? If you scratch the surface, you'll see this technology coming to life, and it's coming out of Dallas-Fort Worth, it's coming out of Texas. But we're in that Jetson age where those things that we saw as children in the cartoons, that technology is birthing and coming to life now. And realistically, in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to start to tangibly see this in various places throughout the United States, let alone the world. Look at some of the advances of this technology around the world. We have the safest airspace in the world because of the FAA, but it takes them a little bit longer to change regulations in that, right? Where other countries don't have all of that rigors to go through. So look at some of the technology that's being implemented and used in Europe right now. It's pretty fascinating to see how fast this technology is ramping up.
And for my final question, Michael, what message would you like to leave regarding the future of advanced air mobility?
I would say become educated. I believe knowledge is power. We need public support in this. We need people to understand the technology. With technology comes great conveniences, but of course there's other sides that have to be considered and understand as well too. So I would say that if one of your listeners is interested in advanced air mobility, get out and learn about it. Find out those companies, those states, those municipalities that are working on this technology, because you're going to see it very quickly here, no matter if you're in an urban environment or you're out in the country someplace. So this technology is coming, everything from small package delivery drones to people transporting to big air freight cargo planes autonomously, Take a look at what's going on and what's being tested and used right now, because it'll give you a really good grassroots understanding of, what's going on. What are your rights in this? How is this technology going to be used? And more so, maybe I want a career in this. How do I get advanced and involved in this industry?
That's it for episode 353 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Michael Hill of Cumulus Technologies. I want to thank Michael for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Cumulus Technologies or want to connect with Michael, check out the webpage at cumulusimaging.com. If you want to follow the progress of urban air mobility in the North Central Texas Council of Governments, go to nctcog.org. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.